Hello and welcome to Blooming Into You. I am Kristen, your host for this episode. This is episode 13 of the first season. I'm doing a baker's dozen because my wonderful friend and fellow coach, Courtney Pouzieux, has joined me today. And I'm so excited that you're here, Courtney. I want to tell everyone about you, but how are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Me too. I'm excited. This is going to be a good conversation all around nutrition. So Courtney is a board certified health and wellness coach. Sorry, I got lost my notes on this, everyone. Um, she's from Bespoke Nutrition and Health Coaching. She's a board certified health and wellness coach, and she specializes in aging well and avoiding inflammation. Ooh, inflammation. Eek. That's a popular word these days, huh?
It is, and for good reason too, because a lot of what we're going to talk today is about how trauma increases our inflammation, and stress can also do the same thing.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited. This is a really good conversation. I really appreciate the trauma, the lean into the trauma with this because it is such a really big key part of the after effects of trauma is the health, uh, the downstream health um, issues that can develop as a result of chronic stress. So, and chronic stress is related to trauma. So, let me just give a little bit of an intro on what trauma is, as I have done before on my show here. But this will lead us into our like really interesting, awesome, amazing conversation. So here we go. Okay. um, so trauma is defined as an individual's ability to cope with traumatic events and the frequency of occurrences based on their personal, emotional, mental, and physical, and even their spiritual resiliency. So it kind of depends on a child's caregivers and the ability that they have to repair the damage or what we call the rupture when something happens in with between a parent and child. And if the parent can successfully rupture the repair, the child may not have as bad of traumatic experiences. But when that doesn't happen and shame is involved, things develop like limiting beliefs, inner critics that inform how we think about
Mm.
ourselves, and trauma traps emotions in the body somatically. This creates a lot more shame, and those limiting beliefs and the inner critics are developed. And this makes a child feel like they have to fight, fly, fawn, appease and please, or even freeze when traumatic experiences occur again. So it doesn't just go away just because you're an adult. These patterns within your body stay, and these patterns do lead to a lot of stress. As you can imagine, if you're telling yourself that you're not good enough 60,000 times a day, subconsciously or even consciously, it's stressful. I mean,
Mhm.
that's, you're bullying yourself. And if you know anything about being bullied, it's stressful. If a person is bullied by anyone, it's stressful. So if you're doing it to yourself, you're just creating a lot of that chronic stress. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So, yeah, so that's basically what trauma is. And I think I want to discuss with you first, if it's okay, that link to chronic stress. Do you have, what can you tell us about that? The chronic stress and the trauma relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a huge link. And I actually want to just go back just a little bit about what you said about childhood, because that's another theme when I talk about healing trauma nutritionally. We're going back to a foundation. And I want to ask your listeners, what is the foundation when you're not doing well, when you're sick? And yes, we're going to go back to our childhood. Did mom make you soup? Did she give you crackers? Did you sit in bed? Or were you pushed to go to school? Were you pushed to, grin and bear it and maybe not listen to your body? Because what happens when we're stressed and we push through it and we're never given a chance to heal or take care of ourselves is that stress can become chronic. And if we're constantly under stress, we're kind of like a gerbil going in a wheel. And the stress is going on and on and on. And we already know, Kristen, that stress is the number one killer. It is um, like ruining our digestion and the parasympathetic response in order to rest and digest. It's interfering with that. We are actually creating this thing called reactive oxygen species, which is damaging our body. And this is why nutrition, especially lots of good vegetables and some fruit can actually counteract those antioxidants that are inside of the fruits and vegetables and the whole foods that we eat, can counterbalance any stress related damage that is going on in our body.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's so interesting. So nutrition really is helpful for helping us heal our body. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I know that, we think about like mindset, and that is absolutely important. Like if you're telling yourself you're not good enough, that you can't do something, that you are always this way, that nobody likes you, that you can't deal with these situations, your body is starting to believe that. And so there's a mindset that shift that needs to happen when we are in chronic stress or we have had trauma in our life. But nutritionally, there is a lot we can do. I want your listeners to kind of think about when we get cut, we can see the healing process and we know that our body needs nutrients in order to heal an open wound. But what if we looked at trauma, internal trauma, that stress is another kind of wound? I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe you could kind of elaborate on that. But
Hmm.
let's say that we are chronically stressed, we're chronically releasing cortisol, and eventually the body isn't going to listen and it's not healing that stressful state. So if we could look at like nutrition where we're creating these reactive oxygen species where they are damaging the body. We're eliminating and using up nutrients and minerals in the body, and that is depleting the body and putting the body under more stress. So let me give an example about how maybe stress or chronic stress can affect our food choices. I think that's really easy because when we're stressed, I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes when, long ago when I was stressed, I would grab maybe a coffee and a granola bar thinking that that was healthy. That would get me over that 4 p.m. slump. And in reality, it was just putting me on a blood sugar roller coaster where I was hyped up on caffeine and sugar. Everything would go really great. And then I would crash. Do,
Yeah.
do you relate to that?
Yes.
Does any of your listeners,
Absolutely.
has that ever happened to you? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, what happens? We get that crash and then we're reaching for something really quick. We don't have the energy to cook or make a healthy meal. And so we stop at a fast food restaurant, which again, it's got sugar, it's got fat, it's got salt, all of these things that are depleting our body of nutrients that we could be getting, but we're just too tired and we're fatigued. And then that can kind of lead to burnout and even
Mm-hmm.
trauma.
Yeah,
So
I want to talk about that for sure. Okay.
yeah.
So, okay, so it's kind of almost like a chicken and an egg thing, right? Because so like you've got like the trauma reaction going on in yourself, and then you don't feel good about yourself. See, because I come from the place of when you just first love yourself and your body, then you'll want to make better choices. But if you're under this attack of bullying from your inner critic all the time, outside of you, people are telling you you're not good enough or your life is showing up that way, certainly then you're gonna feel, well, burnt out is one of the things, right? You're gonna feel like you can't make things happen and get it done. And then you're just kind of like, forget it. I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Who cares? Because you just want comfort too. I mean, like you want energy, but you want comfort. And,
Yeah.
when we're babies, we have breast milk and we want that sugar fat combo. So those donuts are sugar fat combo, right? And, but we don't need that as adults. We don't need babies' food as adults, just saying that part. 'Cause
Yeah, the
somebody
high fat. We're
reminded
not
me of
burning that
that.
off.
Yeah. I mean, we can find other ways to comfort ourselves with like healthier choices, right? We can do like an alternative milk with, not as much sugar or no sugar and, some
Yes.
kind of better for you sweetener in a latte, let's say, if you're going to have the caffeine, or maybe make it a decaf. But we can still get comfort foods without having to, hurt our bodies. So, but I think that when you start out from, behind the eight ball and you're like already feeling bad about yourself, it's really hard to remember. And then, to make the better choices. And then, of course, we talk about like, let's say burnout and grief, for instance. Okay. So we have, burnout, and then people are working so hard, and they're on the go constantly, and they're exhausting all their resources within themselves. And it's just really hard to remember to have that balanced diet. Um, and there are certainly good ways of introducing and phasing in little things we can do to try to create this idea that your body wants to actually have these things like vegetables and lean protein, right? It's like, oh, I hate peas. Well, eat 3 a day for 10 days, just 3. And then, or drink, you know 8 ounces of water 1 time a day for 10 days. Just do a small amount of something, right? Then your body
Yes.
starts to want it. That's just one strategy. But anyway, but when we're under emotional stress from grief, let's say we have a loss, somebody passes away, we get a divorce, or, we lose a job, something like that. Gosh, our nutrition isn't important anymore, is it? It's just like, oh, forget it, out the window. I don't have time to cook anything. I'm too sad. I'm too sad. I'm too
Yes.
stressed out, right? Can you speak
Yeah.
more on that too?
Absolutely. So yeah, so our food choices, we're just grabbing anything, we're putting anything in our mouth, anything in our body, and I can understand that because I've been at a point of burnout in my life. I know that when I'm stressed, I don't maybe think so clearly of what does my body really want. So you were talking about, um, you know, like making bad food choices or not making the healthiest choices. And also, what we need to think about is inflammation. So,
Mm.
stress and inflammation are also linked. And it's that inflammation that's can be damaging our body, can be creating like joints that hurt, brain fog, adding to that stress and that trauma so that we are not able to make quick decisions or feel resilient. You talked about resiliency in the face of stress, and that is getting worn down and worn down. So I want to maybe go back and like talk about how stress or trauma, like what nutrients are being depleted in our body. And one of the first ones is magnesium. And magnesium is a mineral that really helps our body to relax. It is depleted with also more carbohydrates that we like, the simple refined carbohydrates that you might find in um, processed foods, like ultra processed foods, something that you find at a gas station, or quickly, like you're stressed, you're at the airport, you can just grab whatever it is. These are not um things that your great grandmother would recognize as food, some of this
Mm.
stuff.
Mhm.
um Also, zinc is really important for our immune system. And um zinc is found in seafood, and a lot of us aren't eating as much seafood. We're eating more processed foods, like maybe just chicken breast, and meat is going to be really, really important. But you want to vary the types of lean proteins that you're getting, a little bit of fish, a little bit of chicken, maybe a steak ever so often. Anything I'm missing out? Anything you want to dive in deeper? Because I've said a lot.
No, it's good. I want to hear what you have to say. It's so important. Yeah, I think that, you know, well, how do you recommend someone who's going through burnout, let's say? How do they make better choices, or want to even make
Yeah.
those better choices when they're under that kind of stress in their lives? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, you don't ever want, and someone who's burned out, they're really at the end of their rope, and they're not able to even maybe go grocery shopping. They're relying on whatever's in their cupboards. They're maybe dragging themselves out of bed if they can even do that. I mean, burnout is extremely serious. And if any of your listeners are going through burnout, well, they have my sympathy, and they need to be sympathetic to themselves, because your adrenals are probably really taxed. But what we need to remember is that, like a wound, your body is needing protein, those amino acids that's found in proteins, in order to rebuild and strengthen. If your body's depleted in zinc, then you need to eat a little bit of meat. Some like selenium, like Brazil nuts, are really good. They're very nutritious. So focusing on nutritious foods. And I know someone going through burnout, they're not going to be searching for recipes and, oh, what, I'd love to try some bok choy, you know, um, something like some exotic vegetable that they've never eaten before, but go back to like soup, like chicken soup. Try to, the hydration. I love like have a glass of water a day for 10 days and then increase it a little when you're ready. Don't overload yourself.
Mhm.
Even, when you're burned out, getting up and taking a shower, brushing your teeth, that can be a big thing. And I think that we also need to have little celebrations. But don't forget to um, eat those vegetables. Don't forget to eat lean protein. Eggs are really good, nuts and seeds, lentils, beans. I love soup. I find soup so healing. You can add bone broth. That's very healing. I like to think about like the foundation, like I talked about. And so maybe one of your listeners is going through trauma, but they are resilient enough to go to the grocery store and get some vegetables, get some rice, make a really healthy, nutritious soup.
Mhm.
These are the kind of things that you want to fall back on when you're feeling stressed or you're going to have a stressful week. Maybe do some meal planning, do some menu planning. How does that resounding? Like,
Yeah, no, I like that because I was just thinking, one of the many millions of diets that are out there that people can follow or not is called volumetrics. And
yeah,
it's a really good one for loading up first with everything healthy, right? So, like if you did have just like drink a big jar of bone broth, let's say,
yeah,
as your first part of the meal. And then after that, I mean, you could even make a soup out of it and have vegetable. It's better to do like a brothy soup than like a
mhm,
creamy one. But then, I guess it depends on what kind of cream you'd add. I guess you can find healthier versions if you have to do that. But what it does is it starts to fill you up and let your body know you're full on less
mhm,
calories and better foods, better, nutritious
okay,
foods. And then after that, you have vegetables, and if you can't cook up vegetables, eat raw ones. Just eat something that you like. It doesn't have to be broccoli if you don't like
yeah,
broccoli. I know broccoli, onions, garlic, you know, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cruciferous vegetables are so good for us for combating
yeah,
cancers. But if you don't like any of those, just eat something. I mean, eat something that gives you some kind of nutrients that your body wants. Because as you're eating that, and it's easy, then you can eat like nuts, let's say, nuts and
mhm,
seeds. Do something, and then fruit. Like do some things that are really healthy first that you're going to get full on, and then you have less space for the other stuff that's not good for you. So if you're like, I ate, 32 ounces of bone broth, and then I'm still hungry, so I'm going to have some, broccoli and cauliflower, and then I'm going to eat some apples, and then I'm still hungry, I'm going to have some nuts, and then I guess I'll have some cheese or some chicken or something. Great. By the time you get to chicken, if you ate all that, which you could, it's fine. If you're really hungry, you will, and if you're really stressed out, you might want to have more food because but you're having healthier food at least, right? Then I can pretty much guarantee that you're not going to have a big slice of cake or an entire cake or 15 cookies. Now you can save room and have some of that, but it's just like you'll want to eat less of them. And so that's
yeah,
just a strategy I found is helpful. If you can't make bok choy dishes and things like that, like things that are exotic and like, and like, I'm going to make this huge lasagna when I'm burnt out. You're not going to do that unless you love cooking and it comforts you and relaxes you. But
mhm,
for me personally, if I'm having grief or undergoing grief or burnout, I'm just like, I hate cooking anyway. So I'm like, give me some almonds and some cheese or, a carrot. You know what I mean? Like, so does that make sense? Well, how do you feel about that?
yeah. I think volumetrics, that is absolutely, I mean, I've never followed that, but that's kind of what I do. I having soup at the beginning of a meal used to be something that we all did,
Hmm.
back like during our
Yeah.
great grandmothers. It was a really great way to get vegetables and hydration.
Hmm.
Also, you mentioned like the creamy soups. One of the things that I do is I will add a potato. Potato's got a little bit of starch. It makes it creamy, and um, I have a great healthy broccoli soup. and it
Mhm.
just takes potatoes, and and I will send it to you. It's so yummy, and it's creamy, but there's no cream in it. There's a little bit of olive oil, a
Yeah.
little bit of chicken broth or veggie broth, vegetable broth, if that's what you like. So I also love the idea that you are talking about replacing, like, have some nuts, do this. Maybe even if you're somebody who really has to have something sweet at night, have some blueberries, have some berries. Berries don't have quite as much sugar as a lot of the other fruits. And so that's something that you can kind of get out of, like, always having something sweet after dinner, because it's not really necessary to have dessert after dinner. I know some of your listeners are like, "No, Courtney, you're wrong. I don't have to." It's a habit. It's a habit that we've taught ourselves. So, yeah, so changing our habits just a little, taking those like little micro steps, little baby steps, and filling ourselves up with everything healthy and good in the beginning, so that, yeah, at the end, like, if we really feel that we do have to have a slice of cake, you're having a couple of bites of cake, and then when you're 80% full, you're done. Stop eating.
Yeah.
And
Good
again,
point.
these are
Right.
habits, and it's hard when you're stressed. Like, yeah, yeah, you're
Well, yeah.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, and as health coaches, we know like all those tools and tricks for how to, really gauge when you're hungry and when you're full, and like really, be more mindful of your eating habits,
Yeah.
breathing, things like that. So that's a good thing that, we both like to do in our coaching. But so when you're say 80% full, it is about being more aware of your body and what's going on and what's good for you so that you can know when you're actually satisfied versus I'm just going to keep eating because it's my habit. There is another tea. It's called golden milk tea. Have you heard of that? I bet you've heard of
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Is
That was a good one for nighttime too, huh? Do you?
Yes, absolutely. That's with the turmeric and maybe a coconut milk and maybe a
Hmm.
little bit of honey sometimes. I try to kind of
Yeah.
admit the honey. I don't need sweet things. But again, for years I don't need sweet stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that, that can be a blessing sometimes. Or if you're somebody who likes, like, salt, and you like that salt and that fat, um, maybe use a Himalayan sea salt, or a Himalayan, the pink salt, and then use like a sea salt a little bit instead of just that table salt. There's a little bit of nutrients in there too.
Yeah. I mean, I just think all of this goes toward supporting our systems when we're under stress. And so let's say you do golden milk tea, and that's a recipe you can find anywhere. And again, it has a turmeric, you can put cinnamon, you can put maple syrup. You don't have to do sweetened. You can do vanilla sweetened, vanilla flavored, non-sweetened almond
Yeah,
milk or coconut milk or whatever, and that gives a little sweetness. But basically, it also relaxes your body before bedtime as well. So it
yeah,
maybe in lieu of like alcohol or sweets, you'd have that. But again, but also stopping your eating 3 hours before you're sleeping because you want to
yeah,
support your liver and detoxing during the night as well, right? So because when your liver is under stress and you're already under stress from your stressful life, burnout, and the things you're telling yourself, it's just compounding the impact and inflammation in your body, right? So it's just all these little habits, and I just wanted to bring those up because I think that's really important in terms of let's at least get the nutrition on board first. Okay, let's say you can't deal with the trauma right now, the burnout, but you get your nutrition handled and you're starting to feed yourself better. That's going to change your mood. That's because you have a lot of serotonin receptors in the gut anyway, right? So you feed your gut healthy things, probiotics, prebiotics. Look up lists of those foods, folks. They're really great, and they really help support your gut health, and your digestion really is the basis for everything, right? Is that correct, Courtney? That it's the start of
absolutely.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was something I wanted to go into, is that when we're grabbing these quick fixes and, like, coffee and sugar laden snacks, they are changing our gut microbiome and the bacteria. And that can also make us grab things that we wouldn't normally eat. And it is that chicken and the egg, it's the perpetual being on the blood sugar roller coaster, because there have been studies that are saying that when we have cravings, that's actually coming from, like, our gut bacteria. It could be, sugar crashes also, but this is science backed that we have gut bacteria that is not like the good beneficial, but more the bad, and that they need sugar in order to, flourish and survive. And so they will tell us like, hey, we need some refined sugar. We need a little bit, more of this. That's another thing where it's really important to avoid processed sugar and refined carbohydrates and go for those complex carbohydrates that they have more fiber, they are digested a little bit more slowly. Our blood sugar will be a little bit more level. We won't have those, peaks and those lows making us go through that 4 p.m. slump. Everything we put into our body is going to have a down process that's going to be affecting, like what we're eating can either be really healing and nutritious and good for us, or it can have negative consequences. So that's something else that, yes, that's right about the
Yeah,
gut bacteria.
yeah, and I think when you mentioned the blood sugar roller coaster, I want to know some strategies on that in a minute. But I also want to just say that, yeah, like if you're feeding yourself within, like, let's say 4 to 6 hours apart, let's say, right?
Mhm.
And you don't get to that point where you're so hungry you could eat the walls, right? But you're not, but you're feeling like, oh, I'm starting to think about, I'm getting hungry after 3 hours or something or whatever. And then you start to anticipate, what will I eat? If you wait too long, you're going to eat the wrong foods because you're just going to grab anything. So you want to start it when it's approaching, when you're approaching the hungry place without the starving place. And that will help you eat less overall. And also make
Yeah.
sure that your blood sugar stays steady. So because yeah, you'll get into that slump where you're going to want to eat everything. Also, you're going to get feeling, hangry. That's like the word, right? Like you're going to be mad at
Yes.
everyone because you're starving. And so your mood is
Yes.
definitely affected by not eating in the right consistent time frames, right? And the right foods. So it can become an easy thing to do if you just focus on starting when you first need to start and eating something that you know is going to give you the balance. And can you talk a little bit today about what are some ways to help with the blood sugar balancing, like foods or activities you can do? Do you mind sharing some of those?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I'd love to. So let's address the blood sugar roller coaster. If we could think of our plate of food, we need to really be focusing on the three macronutrients: fat, protein, and carbohydrates. And Harvard Health has a really good website. If you go there, it will show you a visual of a plate. The plate is cut in half, and it talks about how lean protein should take up something like, I'd probably say like 45% of the plate. And then it's the same basically for vegetables, that fiber that you want to be, eat as much leafy green vegetables as possible. Americans don't get enough leafy green vegetables. And then you've got a little room there for carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates like rice, quinoa, a little bit of whole wheat pasta, and then oil. I love olive oil and I love avocado oil. I actually prefer to cook with avocado oil and then drizzle my extra virgin olive oil over like my vegetables. And then don't hesitate to add a little bit of lemon zest and lemon juice. And if you are eating all three macronutrients, hopefully at the end of your meal, a little bit like your volumetrics, you shouldn't be hungry. This, your body needs those three macronutrients: a little bit of fat, protein, and complex carbohydrates. They need it in order to make it through the next meal. And also you'll have like just even blood sugar. Also, I wanted to address with some of your listeners about the role of fat. I think Americans are really afraid of fat. How do you feel about fat, Kristen?
Fat doesn't make you fat,
It
but
doesn't. It
good,
doesn't.
good fats are, healthy good fats are the way to go though. So can you, yeah, talk more some about that? That'd be great
Yeah.
to
No, I
learn
mean,
about.
you basically, when you were saying about volumetrics, you said have some nuts, have some seeds. I love avocados. I think that your olive oil is so important. I have a little story. I think when people are stressed, I think that they start eliminating foods from their diets, and that can be really, I want to say dangerous, but not as healthy as they think because your body needs fat. When I was, this was like in the early 90s, I used to work retail, like after school and things. And so some of the girls would be on these diets. And I remember one of the girls that I worked with, her mother was beautiful. Her mother was a model. And so she went and eliminated all fat from her diet. And I mean, at the time, I think I was like 19, 18, 19. And I remember going, oh God, I could never do that. I mean, I played so many sports. I just couldn't imagine like not having fat in my diet, like a little bit of butter, because it was butter
Hmm.
back in the 90s, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
Yeah, but she ended up going to the hospital because she could not poop. So don't eliminate all fat in your diet. It's really, really important, especially when you're stressed, because you need those omega-3 fatty acids. You know, it's for your skin, it's healthy for your heart. You know, have some olives. Um, don't be afraid of a little bit of like grass-fed butter. It's not going to be the end of the world as long as everything is in moderation.
Absolutely. I mean, and they do say maybe 30% or so of your diet should maybe be fats anyway. And you need
Yeah.
it for hormone regulation and
Yeah.
temperature regulation in your body. So if you
Yeah.
don't have fat, I mean, I think that might be what leads to girls losing their periods is they cut out the fat or they just aren't enough calories, but a lot of it might be, fat reduction as well. I'm quite sure, I guess it depends on the specific person, but you do
Yeah.
need some. And to say that we don't need any it is dangerous. Actually, it's very dangerous for your body to not have the food it needs. It's fuel.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so like with the blood coaster stabilization, there's you need to drink enough water, right?
Yes.
And movement. There's other things that I can't remember right now, but maybe you do. Important things
Yeah.
to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that the movement part is really important. Um, because well, when we're exercising, we're releasing dopamine and endorphins that make us feel good. But also after you exercise, there's a period there where our metabolism, goes up, it increases. We're taking our blood sugar regulation is just better because we've been exercising. We've been burning off some of those sugars. Um, I
Mhm.
wanted also to say, I was just talking about, reactive oxygen species and inflammation. But when we exercise, there is an antioxidant that our body produces because our body does produce antioxidants and things to counteract these ROSs, these inflammatory compounds that our body produces. Like we produce them in certain bodily processes, but also movement is so good. But superoxide dismutase is a really powerful antioxidant. And I know that when people are being very stressed, maybe they're even suffering from burnout, like getting up and moving can be really hard. And maybe not with burnout, but being stressed, it's so good. Go for a walk. Right
Mhm.
now, it's super cold where I am, but bundle up and just get outside. Even seeing the sunlight. Maybe your skin, I have to wear a hat and a scarf. Maybe your skin's not touching the sun, but our body knows, we see it in, the eyes, and we know that um, there's sunlight and the fresh air is going to do us a lot of good. So don't make excuses. Just go outside and get some exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have to decide a thing and do it, right? So, like I say, Nike it, just do it because once you do that, once you just take one foot and put it in front of the other one and build up to doing more miles or minutes or whatever you do, you're gonna feel so much better. I mean, I personally was in a really big rut for many years after, my divorce and things like that, and I really gained a lot of weight. I was not eating well. I was really depressed, and I didn't feel like exercising. And during the pandemic, my friend got me out hiking, and we have started now. Now I can't do less than 8 or 10 miles, unless because I love it so much because it's
Yeah.
changed my entire worldview, not just my body, but my worldview is I'm happier now, and I know I'm doing something good for myself, my muscles, my body, and my dog's happier, by the way, too. But, like, I think that we sometimes have to just, even though we feel sad or burnt out or, whatever's going on, just do a little something of something. It does not have to be 8 to 10 miles. I'm just saying that that's what happened over the course of many months of doing it is my body loves exercising anyway. So I felt like that's what I wanted to do, but do whatever you love. Like for sure, do whatever you love or like, at least like. Don't do things just because your friends are doing them. Like, don't like start being I'm not a mountain biker. All my best friends are mountain bikers. I'm sure that I would die the first time I tried it. I would probably fall off the side of the mountain. I don't like doing it. I like doing my spin bike at home and staying still. But that's what I'd like to do. And my friends don't influence me. And sure, they'd love it if I went and did that with them, but I'll slow them down a lot because they're all like racers now. But the point is that I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to do it. And I know I will not be consistent with it. So I want to do something where I know I'll be consistent 3 to 5 days a week, 150 minutes a week or whatever, right? So, yeah, I think that that's really good. And that does help with your blood sugar stabilization as well,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And I love, like, if you love dancing, then dance. But we do so much in life that we don't enjoy. So your
Mm-hmm.
movement should absolutely be something that you enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, and like in relationship to trauma as well, the trauma responses, reactions you have, you're if you're doing all the foundational things that supplement your body, because your body,
Yes.
mind, and spirit are connected. So you're
Yes.
doing things that like foundationally help you feel just a little bit better because you're giving yourself the dopamine hit that's a healthy one versus, using drugs or alcohol or whatever to get it. And you are eating the right foods that give you that sense of mood stabilization at the very least, and also helping your body heal. You're going to notice a big difference just in that, right? Like I said, if you love yourself, you're going to feed yourself well. But even if you don't love yourself and you start feeding yourself well, there is that reaction later of like, oh, I feel better. I feel because I think we were talking, when we kind of first talked about this last week, we talked about like how, gosh, I just lost it. I do that all the time. What was it? Oh, I know. If you had good nutrition, let's say, and you stopped it, or you never had it at all, and then you start adding good nutrition, you can tell the difference in yourself. Like you can tell your energy levels and your moods. I mean, can you speak a little bit more about that? Like not having it and then adding it in, and then the difference you feel and notice. There's something to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and that comes probably, I think what we were talking about is my own experience that I didn't know how good I could feel until I felt it. And then you have this realization like, why did I suffer for so long? Why, I think I might have been talking about, I found out that I had a gluten sensitivity, not an allergy. I'm not celiac, but I'm almost celiac.
Mm.
And after I cut out gluten, I had all this energy. The brain fog was gone. I was no longer sick all the time. And it was like, why? Why did I do that to myself? Why did I not even realize? But you don't know how good you're going to feel until you start making the changes. And then really you never want to go back. And you might go back like ever so often. Recently I was traveling and I had some gluten by accident. And of course, I had the headache, I had the stomach ache. The next
Mm.
day, I was like, oh, I don't want to go hiking. I don't want to do this. And then I was like, okay, see, this is what happens. Those are just reminders, they're
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
lessons. This is what it feels like. Don't go back to eating bad. Like just because, maybe it tasted good and you didn't realize for 2 bites that you were eating gluten doesn't mean that you're going to go introduce this because it really is a matter of what we put in our body is either healing or it can be made potentially harmful. There are some things
Mm-hmm.
that are neutral, that's fine. But the moving part, if and I don't know if this kind of goes into like the blood sugar and the roller coaster, but if you have a meal and you're feeling really lethargic, look at the amount that you're eating because overeating can also affect blood sugar regulation. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're eating this great healthy meal, but we're eating to the point where we're stuffed, we have to unbutton our pants, and then we just want to sit on the couch and do nothing, start seeing, okay, am I eating maybe a little bit too much of, I don't know what. You should feel energized. I guess what I'm saying is get curious about what's on your plate. Um, and it's fine to eat as much as you want of vegetables. I think that that's really good. Um, but if you're feeling lethargic after meals, pare it down maybe. Maybe you don't need to eat you know, so much protein. Maybe you're eating too much protein or you're not chewing. Going back to that stress response, um, we really need to like breathe, and digestion is going to start when you're actually preparing the meal or you're sitting down to the meal. Let your eyes take a moment and take in this beautiful meal and that which you're going to eat. And then the next step really is chewing. You know this. I mean, you want to chew at least, 13 times, if not more. And give your body like time to actually like have the digestive juices start flowing. I like to have a cup of water about 30 minutes before I eat, just to make sure that I'm hydrated. Because if we're not hydrated, then we're not going to be able to make those enzymes and that stomach acid to digest our food.
Hmm. Well, I'm really
No.
glad you brought up the when digestion starts because yeah, one of the good things about making your own food is you do get the processes in your body ready to go into the digestion mode. And then if you're breathing throughout your meal, and being very mindful of the chewing and the senses that you're experiencing, that does put you into that rest space too, because it calms your body down so it can digest, right? It's like it's the rest and digest, and you're not so like fight or flighty and starving. And also, if you eat at the right time for your body, you won't go into the sympathetic fight or flight mode where you're
Yes.
hangry and freaking out because you're starving. I mean, all of these things are just little tools that help to create the perfect environment for your body to heal and digest and absorb. Because when you're not relaxing while you're eating, you can't absorb the food as well. And then you are
Abs-
going to be reaching for the stuff that you shouldn't eat because you're just like, I don't know, I ate all that food and I'm starving. So, well, maybe you weren't calm enough during the meal and before the meal. This should be an event. The meal should be an event. We don't make it into this important thing. We watch TV, we're on our phones, we don't talk to each other. It should be this enjoyable experience where you're giving yourself healthy things and you're, enjoying the time spent with yourself or others, and also being really calm and mindful. So yeah, I think that's all really good to remember as well. And the inflammation part, I wanted to talk about a little bit more too. When we are under stress and we have the cortisol being, just pumped
Yeah.
out in our system, that does start the inflammatory process, the immune process, because then our body creates inflammation and our immune system wants to, help us out by attacking what's being inflamed,
Yeah.
even though it's our own bodies. And this is where we can go start to have celiac, lupus, multiple
Yeah.
sclerosis, things that, downstream um, disorders that really affect our lives in a really bad way. So anything about that you want to say? I don't know if that was part of your
Yeah, like
discussion or not, but I think it's interesting.
yeah, the effects of stress and like autoimmune disorders, because like multiple sclerosis, lupus, Hashimoto's, um, rheumatoid arthritis, these are all autoimmune, issues. And we talked about gut health, and gut health is really, really important when you're talking about autoimmune, because when you have like um, gut permeability and these little tiny, food compounds are, our bloodstream is being exposed to these little tiny, tiny bits of food because the um, little villi and the intestines are allowing those tiny, tiny, like compounds of food. They're not actually compounds of food. They're just like little molecules. Thank you very much. Molecules, entering our bloodstream. Some of this is like gluten is very closely related, like looking like to our body, our thyroid. And that's where if you do have Hashimoto's or Graves' disease or something to do with the thyroid, you might not want to consume gluten or gluten
Mhm.
products like soy sauce, wheat, barley, um, you know, whole wheat. And if you are like avoiding something like gluten or you're vegetarian, so you're not eating as much meat, really think about what are you replacing those foods that you took out of your diet. As someone who doesn't eat gluten, I eat more protein. And so the size of the protein, because I do have an two autoimmune disorders, I
Mm.
eat a really big portion of lean protein. So, like a lot of women are like, oh, I don't want to eat too much protein. I'm going to get fat or my muscles will get too big. No, they really won't. Especially if you're chewing and you're eating lean protein, your body's going to use that protein to heal itself, the digestive system. It's going to repair like skin, the immune system. So don't worry about eating like protein. But what I do is I add also more vegetables, so more protein and more fiber.
Mhm.
And in that way, I don't eat gluten. I'll eat complex carbohydrates like quinoa, gluten-free oats, amaranth, millet. But really be aware if you're taking anything out of your diet, what are you putting in? Put in again lean protein and fiber.
That makes it so simple, right? You can just find those
Yeah.
kinds of things. And again, I had said about the list of things you can do to help your gut. Eat those
Yes.
foods. I mean, if you're eating all the things that your body wants and needs first, then, do whatever you want to do after that. But, at
Yeah.
least give yourself the best benefit, right? I know that when I studied functional nutrition for a little while, didn't quite get through that whole class. I loved it so much, but I
Yeah.
just kind of dropped the ball. But I did love it. And one of the things she recommended, our teacher recommended, is clear the muddy waters. And you do that by, getting rid of dairy, sugar, and gluten.
Yeah.
And then see. And I did that for a little while, and it really did make a difference. And I know that gluten is one of the worst things you can have, honest to goodness, because it's just the way it reacts in your gut and in your brain. And I don't remember the what that is, but I remember it wasn't good, and it kind of it works on your like dopamine receptors, I believe, in your brain, and so it does become quite addictive to have gluten, and it's not good for you because of that leaky gut, the gut permeability, right? Like that's associated with that. And again, I don't really remember all those details. You know better than I would, of course, but I just think it's kind of interesting if you wanted to phase out some things and just see how you feel. The sugar, gluten, and dairy could be good. Now, I have a problem with the dairy part because I do love yogurt and I do think it's very helpful for gut health. I mean, you can eat a lot of things that aren't dairy that help your gut. You don't have to have the yogurt, but I do like the fermentation. I do love the yogurt. So I don't know. Do you have any opinions on that?
I think that it's always individual, even with gluten. There's some people that do fine with gluten, and gluten usually upregulates zonulin, which allows like the nutrients to, flow into the bloodstream so that our body can get those nutrients. But yeah, I think yogurt might be a little bit different than dairy just because it's fermented. I'm not so
Mhm.
sure about that. But if that's something that you enjoy and it's not causing you, like you're not getting a lot of mucus and it's not making you constipated or it's doing the opposite, as long as it's like low sugar, some dairy products have a lot of sugar in it.
Mhm.
I think, I know, I really like cottage cheese of all things.
And
And
cool.
I put a
Yeah.
little bit of cinnamon in that. And I think that, calcium is one of these things. I have a funny story that recently I lift weights. I do a lot of weightlifting. So if you're weightlifting, protein's going to be really, really important for you. But so I know that as a perimenopausal woman going into menopause, that calcium is so important. And so I do take a calcium supplement and I have, but for about 2 weeks, I don't remember why. I just wasn't taking my calcium like I should. And it's so funny. I was a little moody and I was like, what is going on? Well, I'm perimenopausal, so that could have been it. But I started taking that day. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't been taking my my calcium, and my calcium actually has a little bit of vitamin D too. Long story short, the next day my mood, it was like the sun was out, like I had the best mood, and I thought, wow, was that because of, could have been the vitamin D, even though there was very little vitamin D, and I was taking another vitamin D supplement, um, just because at my age, I'm depleted in vitamin D, so I do take a supplement. But calcium, I started looking up, like, would calcium have affected my mood? Guess what? It might. I can't remember
Hmm.
the study, but I was like, wow. And so now I am religious in taking my calcium, especially the days that I work out and the day after, because it's amazing that nutrition can make such a difference in our moods, the way we act, the way we behave.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. That's a great story. I wouldn't have thought of that at all, you know. So, yeah.
I do want to put one caveat in is if do not add just a vitamin D supplement. You really need to have an annual checkup and get your vitamin D levels tested before you add that supplement. But most of
Mhm.
us, by about perimenopause age, probably are deficient in vitamin D.
Okay.
So yeah.
When we were talking, when we first were connecting over this call last week, we talked about a little bit about pizza, which, a lot of people love. What do you think? What do you recommend for if like people want to have pizza? Because, we don't want to get rid of stuff that we love entirely, right?
Yeah, that's the thing with nutrition is that people are like, oh, I don't want to go gluten free. It just tastes like cardboard. Well, no, it doesn't. Well, maybe it does, but get used to it, I
Get used to
guess.
it, yeah. Right, exactly.
But yeah,
Okay.
like one of those things like I'll get you know, they s- they sell the cauliflower base pizzas and I happen to really like cauliflower. But let's say you still want to have, just regular pizza. Try to replace like the pepperoni. Try to put like some mushrooms or black olives or broccolini. Um don't like put more vegetables. Okay, fine. You really have to have the pepperoni. Try to put some peppers on there. Um Try to just load it up with vegetables, which is what I try to do. And I don't feel so guilty because I think also if you're already stressed and you're already feeling um like you're in a traumatic situation where your confidence is kind of lacking and then you're beating yourself up over your food choices, like that's just not healthy. Just enjoy the pizza. Put
Mm-hmm.
on some more vegetables if you can. And just enjoy. It's really important to enjoy our food. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. Like again, phasing in what's better for you. And again, if you are like, I really, really, really have to have this hamburger, well, put some, onions and lettuce and tomatoes or something on it. Yeah, like just try to do little bits of things. It does not, you
Yes.
want to feel successful. You don't want to feel like you're just this big failure because you can't, eat, 4 pounds of broccoli in one meal, which by the way, no one can. And that's also the good thing about vegetables. I mean, you can eat a lot of them, which is good, but you get full faster. And same with the water. Drink more of that and you hydrate yourself more and you'll feel fuller. But yeah, like I think that like the idea is don't beat yourself up if you can't get it perfect. It's not about that. It's definitely
Yes.
progress over perfection, right? So if you can just start adding even to one meal a day for a week or a few days, um, even if it's 2 weeks, whatever it works for you, just add those three peas into your day, or like a little, yeah, half a cup of broccoli, or I say broccoli a lot. I don't know why broccoli. I meant Brussels sprouts or something. Again, if you're eating and if you eat those vegetables and they're crunchy, the crunchy effect will help you also feel fuller. There's little things you can do, but you'll feel more successful if you're like, oh, I ate an apple, and they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and that is actually true, and also it's very good for your gut and gut health. But it's add an apple in, and then if you're like, I really, really want to have ice cream, okay, do that. But at least you try to cover some bases. And the more you practice this, and the more you feel successful at it, the more you're going to want to do it more. And I think that's really important, especially when you are feeling like you do not want to eat healthy.
Yes.
It's like kind of force yourself to do just a little bit more than you have been doing. Because I think
Yeah.
it's going to make a difference. As you're saying, it's going to make a difference because when you don't have what you need and then you add it again, you notice the difference. You notice, oh, I do feel better when I have more calcium. I do feel better when I have more, good, healthy nutrients in my diet. And when you start to feel better, you want to do it more. I mean, right? Every time we feel better or look better, we want more of that. So I think it's just a practice like anything else. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I also want to put a shameless plug in for frozen vegetables and frozen fruit. A lot of people will say, well, it's really hard for me to get, like, especially now, maybe to get fresh vegetables and fresh fruits, but go to your frozen section. A lot of these, um, big companies, they have like fields and they're picking the spinach or they're picking the fruit and immediately they're freezing it, bagging it. And there are certain parts of the country where getting fresh produce is not easy. So go frozen. It's not unhealthy, especially right now. I think, like, especially in the winter time, a lot of the fruit might even be more nutritious than if you were to get the fruit that's been sitting out for a couple of days, that's traveled in a truck for a week or something like that.
Mhm.
So
Good.
don't fear frozen foods. And also, even if like buying organic whole foods like vegetables or fresh fruit is too expensive for you, don't ignore canned food. I don't love canned food, but if financially that's where you're at, it's just better to put in a little bit of vegetables, those canned green beans. Do not feel bad about it. Ever so often, I've had to have green beans like I'm out on a camping trip or something. It's just easier.
Yeah.
Just let go of the shame, let go of the guilt. Like, we don't want to worry about this. We're trying to nourish our body the best way we can. And there are so many ways. There's no perfect way. So I love that you said, you don't have to get it perfect.
Yeah, you don't. And also another thing that you can do that's really easy and maybe not as much fun is when you read your labels, and if it doesn't look like it's a food, it's not a food, and go with the ingredients that are real food. I mean,
Yeah.
they may actually be a little more expensive, which is can be a problem when I understand if you can't do it. But you're eating chemicals that are just getting stored as fat. They're not useful to your body. So,
Yeah.
if you want to do, and that helps your blood sugar regulation also, because if you're giving yourself non-food things, your body doesn't see it as a food. Again, it stores it as fat. You're not getting the regulation in the blood sugar regulation, and then you're screwed. So you're like, I gotta eat something else. I'm just gonna eat this
Yeah.
candy bar instead. And so, yeah, like I think that's another way. If you can go organic, I know it's expensive, but in the long run, it's going to help you with your medical costs. Let's look at it that way, right? Like now I have to pay a
Yes.
little bit more in the front for these
Yeah.
organic oranges. Well, oranges aren't really organic, right? Because the peel, but other fruits that can be. I mean, they do have organic. Do they have organic oranges? I think they do, but I think because of the peel, you don't necessarily have to buy organic when with certain fruits and vegetables.
I
Just
can't
what I
speak
thought.
for oranges. I get what you're saying. I think that certain chemicals, forever chemicals might, but again, we're not looking for perfection. We're really just, the EWR does the Dirty Dozen, and I always like to look through that. Like, I know cherries are something that there's a lot of pesticides. So if you can
Yeah.
spend the money on organic cherries, that might be a
Yeah.
food, you know.
Hmm.
I know
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah. Pick
crazy.
and choose. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was just gonna say I'm one of those crazy people that I love to eat kiwi skins. I know I'm so I know
They must be good
everybody's
for you, though. I love like skins on things. I've never had kiwi skin. Huh.
it's a little different and I don't know why. Anyway. But
Okay. Interesting.
yeah, something like that. Like, yeah, it probably is worth me buying organic.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, since you're eating the skins. Well, and
Yeah.
also maybe the skins are like the potato skins. They have a lot of the nutrients, fiber in the skin, I would imagine, right? Um, yeah, yeah, do they? Yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Or you're just weird. I don't know. Either way.
Probably both.
Probably both, yeah.
Absolutely both.
I could say the same for myself. That's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, like I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add to this? This has been a really, really insightful conversation, Courtney. I'm really glad we've had this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think, yeah, just as long as like listeners are taking away that even the little changes that you do, even the things that you avoid, like fried foods, and replacing that with more nutritious whole foods is going to be beneficial for them. And then we're not trying to get everything perfect, but there are choices out there. I also made a really cute little booklet. It's only a couple pages long, but it talks about um, healing trauma. And I'd like to offer that to your
Oh,
listeners.
thank you.
I know, yeah, yeah. And I think, I think you are doing such powerful work, and I I am so happy to be a part of that, Kristen. Thank you so much for inviting
Mm.
me and letting me speak and talking about these there's hope and there's a way out and there's another side. So I love how much you support everyone, and I'm glad that I can help on that journey.
Oh, thank you. And I just love what you're doing as well. And I want you to tell us a little bit about what you offer your clients. Definitely would go to you if I was going to anyone. You're so smart about this, and you're so good, and you're so
Oh,
kind and nurturing. And I think people need that. They don't want to feel ashamed that they haven't been able to get the nutrition or body weight thing right. And so tell us a little bit about where we can find you, maybe a little bit about the programs you offer. I know you do work with the cleanse that we learned in our health coaching program, right? Is that part of like something you use in your programs? Or yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.bespokenutritionandhealthcoaching.com. It is a mouthful.
Mm.
But I offer a lot of I love to do the cleanse. As someone who has a couple of autoimmune issues, I find that the cleanse really keeps my lupus in check, and it gives me energy. There's no shame. Wherever my clients are, I will meet them there. I love to have fun and I love to laugh, and I try to make things fun and easy. And because if it's not fun, it's not going to be sustainable. And I know me, I love to play, I love to have fun. I love to go, oh, who cares? I'm going to have like, a glass of wine and but I always believe with everything that if you do, for example, if you do end up um eating something maybe that you shouldn't have, there's always something that we can do in order to counteract any negative non-beneficial things that we're doing. Um, our health is a journey. And so I offer a 14-week program for coaching. I do a lot of maintenance coaching with my clients because I always find that losing the weight or getting a handle on some of the issues that we're having, the health issues, it's easy to like lose the weight, but then once the diet's done, well, what do you do? So this is where coaching, even, or going through our trauma and maintaining it monthly is guarantees that what we're doing remains a great investment. And a lot of our coaching, like some of my clients are like, I've got it. I actually, right around Christmas, one of my clients called me and said, Courtney, you would not believe it. I have lost 20 pounds after we coached. I am doing great. Everything that you taught me, I've really embraced. And I was really proud of her. And I love hearing things like that,
Mhm.
14 weeks of, coaching with her, and she just took it and ran. I love that.
Yeah,
I
that is
also,
the best
offer-
thing.
yeah, it is. It is. And I also offer shorter programs, but I really find that the 12 or the 14 weeks, like gut health, we work on um, confidence and embracing healthy lifestyle changes is really beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. People are like, oh, 3 months is 14 weeks, 12 weeks, that's a long time. It's like, it's really not. It's 3 months of your life. Um, and what were you doing before it, right? Like if this could change your entire life and the way you do everything, and you lose weight and you're healthier and you're happier, what price would you put on that? It's an investment in yourself, and especially because you do give the tools. As coaches, we give the tools. We're like, here, we want you to succeed. Take what I
Yeah.
know and do it. And that's the thing. We're not keeping it for ourselves. We're saying, here, do this because that's going to help you be successful. And that's the whole point of coaching is we want to get you from, kicked out of the nest and flying on your own. We're working ourselves out of a job. But the point is because we want you to be successful and happy in your life and healthy. So
Yes.
yeah, I love that. And so I think, yeah, 14 weeks with you is like, it'd be too short for me. I'd be like, I need
Oh,
you forever. But that's
Yeah.
the other thing, you don't want them to need you forever, right? You don't want that. You want them to just do it themselves. So yeah,
There,
it's amazing.
there's absolutely an end. There's absolutely an end. But I really find that when I offer, like, look, you can sign up. We'll check in whatever you need. Yeah. After a while, clients are like, I've got this. But I love when my clients still check
That's
in
good.
with me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know that's nice. And it's nice when they say I've got this. It just makes you just feel so good. You're like, oh, thank goodness you are better than when you came. You know what to do better than when you came here, and you feel confident and successful. And that's just such a beautiful thing to see
Yeah.
people happy and just doing it. And I love that.
Yeah.
So gosh,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you joined us today. I'm really glad for this conversation, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that we talked about this and that you reached out to me to talk about this. And I'm really happy that you did, because it's such a good way to support trauma recovery, as well as everything in life, obviously. But in terms of this particular show, it's so helpful if you can do whatever you can, even if you're feeling really, really bad about life, to just give yourself a little bit of the good stuff to help yourself along, because your mood is at least going to change.
Yeah.
And that's going to help you be able to tackle the more emotional parts that you're going through. It's just going to help you stabilize more, so that you feel like you can adopt new mindset shifting and new, ways of thinking about yourself and others. And that's just going to go a long way, because we take things very personally when we've been traumatized, and we think the whole world's
Yes.
against us and that we're bad. And to be able to feed ourselves well, and then say, wait a minute, hold on, is that really true? You can do better reframing of your life when you feel like your body is fed well in a healthy way. So again, thank you so much, Courtney. I really appreciate you coming on today. And hopefully we can have you back some other time, and we'll have more to chat about, because I could go on with you forever, but I should probably let you get on with your life and your day. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Kristen. Thank you so much. Thank you to your listeners.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Have a good one. Take care.
You too. You
Bye
too.
now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. See you next time.